that is a really late coffee. I've got an early morning coffee. I thought you were going to turn it with a glass of wine.
Who says I didn't?
Is
Just
it a
ran out
glass
of
of
clean
wine? Yeah.
cups.
Yeah, if it was the other way around, it would be a glass of wine for me as well.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't know what we've signed ourselves up to here. I was saying, I think it's going to be a therapy session. So
Yeah.
we both have young kids, right? Both two girls. That's funny. No boy mums in the room.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we've signed ourselves up to chat about how our flexible working works and our biggest concerns around bringing up these little people in a world that's a little bit scary at times, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It's that we've got lots of questions in our back pocket, haven't we, for today to ask each other? Because I don't actually think it's something that you and I have spoken about at all, really. We work on very different time zones, but we're going through pretty much the same thing, just on different continents.
You know what? I was thinking about that as well. I was thinking that, like, obviously we're a super family friendly, family supportive company, but when we're on the books,
Yeah.
families out the window, barely talk about it. I don't even think half my clients know I've got kids, to be
Oh,
honest.
really?
Well,
Really?
because like it's so much of it's so like remote chatting, and you've
Yeah.
got meetings scheduled, and you've got
Yeah.
agendas, and it's just kind of like, hey, how you going? How's the weather? Straight into it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Or
mean?
and
So
and you plan your days so that the kids are not around, right?
definitely,
It's
yeah,
like I
exactly.
usually blur this background. Because this is my office, this is the playroom, this is the room where our three cats go mental and when they get the zoomies, like this everything happens in this room. So I usually blur it out. It's more like putting on that professional front, isn't it, when you like log on. I don't know whether I do that
Yeah.
to is that protective maybe? Because this is a really safe space when we're working. It's actually sometimes I come to work for a bit of a break.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. I think like by having that scheduled time, especially when you've got young kids who are still at home or only at like daycare for however many days you can bloody afford it, um, it's actually nice to get into a space where you're like, okay, back to being an adult, back to doing
Yeah,
what I do well. Yes, mumming. I think I'm good at being a mum, but it's nice to kind
yeah.
of just get away from that and act like a
Adult
productive human
conversation.
being.
Adult conversation.
Yeah,
Something that challenges the mind. I actually,
yeah,
like, I know we both had. I think you had both your kids while you were working here, didn't you? So and
yeah.
before I joined, I already had Malia. Malia was one at the time that that I joined, so I was relatively fresh off of mat leave from a previous company. Evie, my youngest, had her while I was here and went through mat leave here. And when I was on mat leave, made the conscious decision to come back sooner to work. Like with Malia, it was all, I'm going to take the full year. I want the full year, first time mum. You do it that way. And then I kind of lost myself in parenthood in that year, thinking,
Mm,
oh, do I even want to go back to an office job, to what I do? Because you kind of forget when you're in that like parenting bubble. But with Evie, I don't know, poor kid. I was back at work when she was 3 months old, on phone calls with clients while she was just in a little rocker in the corner or having a nap. But that was a conscious decision because I needed something to engage my brain again. You came back quite quickly after yours, didn't you?
yeah, so I actually had the opposite experience. And I mean, first off, we're extremely privileged to be able to not have to, put them into full-time care at like
Yeah, yeah,
you know, a month old and stuff. So like
yeah.
I'm always grateful for being able to have that choice. But I was the opposite. So when I had Olivia, it was just me out here, and it was just me sort of across this region, and um, I was just so I don't know ingrained in the routine that I was already in that I was and Simon can attest to this, and you know. HR, this was no pressure by Simon, but I was literally had Olivia, and within a couple of hours when she was asleep, I was emailing off my phone, and they were like, "What are you doing?"
I don't know whether it's dedicated or unhinged.
Probably a bit of both. But it was just,
Both.
but then I got to a point where I was like, I'm trying to do both. I'm spread across
Yeah.
both, and I'm not doing either well. I felt that my work
Yeah.
was suffering. I couldn't, do what I wanted to do or commit to what I wanted to commit to as well. And then I felt that, first time mum, but I was like, well, I'm, being a terrible mum to Olivia because she's
Yeah.
lying
Yeah.
there and I'm emailing, whatever. So with Juliet, it was
Yeah.
actually a little bit different. I was like, no, I'm going to take the time. It was still just 3 months, but I wanted to take the time to just focus on her and not spread
Yeah.
myself so thin.
And
Um,
also on you in that time. Like the recovery after having kids is intense. It can be
yeah,
intense.
but I find so like in terms of the theme of this, which is like flexible working and parenting, like I always say to people, it's fab, right? Because I can, to a point, plan my day around my life. So
Mm.
if I know that there's a swimming lesson at 4:30 on a Thursday, as much as possible, I won't schedule any calls in
Yeah.
during that time,
Yeah.
right? Um, and being a international company that we are, obviously a lot of our calls are either first thing in the morning or last thing
Yeah.
at night when we have like team calls because we're UK and New Zealand.
Yeah.
But the downside to that, and I wonder if you can attest to this, is that you're never off,
Mm.
right? You're never, so, I might have an hour or so in the day where, I can, hang out with Juliet, I can do what I need to do, I can do the shopping or whatever, but I've still got my phone. If I get pinged, I'm
Mhm.
still there or whatever. So
Mhm.
whilst my day is no longer like 8 hours
Tied to a
back to
desk.
back,
Mm.
yeah, it's almost 14 hours
Always on.
sporadic. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
and like
absolutely.
that fits my life. It can be tough, but it fits my life at this stage. But
Yeah.
it does have a pros and cons
I
element to
think
it.
as parents, we're probably destined to feel guilty either way. I think
Yeah.
that's the deal, right? You just feel guilty or worried about stuff all the time because you've got these little humans walking around the world and they're not always with you or you can't always control what they're doing. And I think you're absolutely right. Like the flexible working fits perfectly into our routine at the moment. I can't imagine another way in which I could do this that doesn't involve having both my girls, Evie starting school in September, in breakfast and dinner club every single day. And
Mm,
you then lose so much time in the week with them. And because you'll have the morning routine till about 7:30, then off to breakfast club, pick them up at 6 when you finished your day, and then that's that. It's bedtime within an hour and a half, two
yeah.
hours, and
Yeah.
they also pick up on that rush, on that stress. So being able to be a bit more flexible, and like you say, like if I need to pick them up a bit earlier one day, I can. If they need to go to a club, I can. If they have a sports day or a parents' evening, I'm there in person, and that means so much because I've said this to quite a few people. It's a mindset shift because I often fall into the trap of holding myself to the same standard as I was able to work before
Yeah.
children. And it's not
Yeah.
possible when you also have another full-time job, which is raising your children and running your family. It's just as hard. And I'm not saying you do a worse job. You just have to admit that no, I can't do a 7 till 7 p.m. day anymore because I don't want to. I want to be there at bedtime. And they're only small for such a short period of
Mm,
time. In a few years, they're not going to want to hold our hand or walk to school with us. They're going to want to go off and spread their wings. And then we're
mm,
like, oh, well, we spent those first 10 years just juggling. It's hard.
yeah.
But again, that's where the guilt creeps in.
Have you any like boundaries that you put in place? Is there anything that you do to make sure that you're, what's the word that everyone uses, present with your
Yeah,
children when
yeah.
you're with them?
Um, I've been thinking more and more about this, particularly over the last year. And I think this is mostly because I've seen where I haven't had boundaries in place, even for myself, like I end up sinking lots of time into my phone or into work emails or into a project that I'm working on, and I'll end up kind of half doing, as you said, half doing the kids and mostly focusing on that. The boundaries that I've been trying to put in place for me, and it's hard, and we have to admit that, yeah, sometimes life happens, sometimes things crop up and you have to work around them. But at the moment, I've been being very kind of strict on, my daughter's in a after school club most days until about 5. At that point, I pick her up and I don't look at, the laptop doesn't get opened again from 5 until 6 or 6:30 or whenever they've gone to bed. And then if I needed to, that's when I pick up work. So it's not impacting, but I have to leave work in a way that nothing's outstanding, no one's going to ping me, because then if they are, or if something is slightly unfinished, that's when I'll get drawn back in. Do you have similar boundaries?
I could probably put more in
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
I think my boundaries is because I had a conversation with our colleague Sam a little while ago about how back in the day, like when we were still writing,
Yeah,
I'll be
yeah.
writing a byline for someone and an email would pop up and I wouldn't do anything about the email till I was
Yeah.
finished what I was doing. Whereas now
Yeah.
we've got this, I don't know about you, but I have this innate thing I have to respond immediately.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what I'm trying to do is like mentally prioritize things.
Mm.
So I look at it, I haven't turned it off, but I will be like, leave it on unread and get to it once the kids are in bed, or you
Yeah.
know, when I have a moment that I can do it, rather than thinking, okay, I gotta respond. I guess where
Yeah.
it gets a bit tricky as well is when we have work that spans time zones where my evening is still in a work day for a client or a team or whatever. So, you know, it's not, you know, whilst it's not my work day anymore, it is theirs.
Yeah,
So there
yeah.
is also that element. But yeah, I probably should think about putting more um, boundaries in place. It's just about figuring out what they look like at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely been times where I think you and I have been messaging and it's been really late my time and early your
Yeah.
time, and I've been
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
bed going, Kelly, can you just do blah 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 blah, or this is where I've got to, and thinking, hang on, it's like 11:30 p.m. here. What am I doing? But sometimes you do need to do it.
Yeah.
What do you think about like lock boxes for devices and stuff like that? It's something that I've been
For
toying
our own
with
devices.
for our own devices as well. Yeah, we've got to lead by example, right?
That's true. That is true. I'd love it if my husband did that. Definitely. I feel like I have a bit of self-awareness where I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I've got my phone in my hand and
Yeah,
I'm also playing with the kids. Like just, you
yeah,
know, put it down. I set it
yeah.
on what's it called? Like do not
Do not
disturb or
disturb. Yeah,
yeah, I do that and I
yeah.
have that automatically go on at 9 p.m.
Right.
So most of the time I try to
Yeah.
ignore that. But look, more power to you if you can do it.
It's really, really hard. Even just for our kids, because you just alluded to it just then. How much of our own tech use are our kids
Yeah.
absorbing? And my daughters are 6 and 3. Well, 7 and 4 as of like next week. Um, and they're growing up around this stuff and they're seeing us on our devices. This is not even work related now. This is just when you get into a doom scrolling. What am I doing?
Yeah,
Why am
exactly.
I
Do you know?
scrolling right now? It's
Do
the
you know how many
like
times I'd say that? Like, I'll be like on the phone, I'll be on my phone, and then I'll just be like, and I'll
I
literally
don't know what I'm
throw
doing.
it on
Yeah.
the couch and be
Yeah.
like, what am I doing?
What am I, yeah. I know.
Yeah,
Because time goes so quickly when you're in there. There's something about it that just speeds up
yeah,
time, and you'll lose an hour suddenly. You're like, hang on, that really is that time gone? But I think I'm coming at it more from that point of view, because I do worry about how much they're like seeing from us when we're on our phones, and how dependent. Like, I've had Evie come up and run up to me and go, "Mummy, you left your phone behind," just because I left the room. Well, I don't need it. It's not attached to me. It can be separate from my person.
I had a similar experience, like a come to Jesus moment when Livy, she said to me, what were we doing? I don't know, but like her playroom is in her room, and so
Yeah.
she was like, "Can you come and play with me or whatever?" And before I could even say anything, she was like, "You can bring your phone." And I was like, "Oh, God."
Oh no. Then
I
it got
know.
lobbed out the window. You're like, don't need
I
it.
was just like, yeah. I'll tell you what, guys, this is the honest truth on Branch Road Unscripted.
Yeah,
We're all terrible mothers.
it's really it's hard. I think we're just doing our best, but it's the tech is too clever. The tech is too addictive. It is designed to
So
be
yeah,
that
I
way.
mean, yeah, I think like cut ourselves a bit of slack. Like I do
Yeah.
think that because of the way we set up our life and because we have this flexible working, unfortunately, when my kids are at home, I do have to still work, right? So
Yeah.
if I do see an email come in or a Teams message come in, like I have to look at it or whatever. But yeah, you're right. It's when you sort of
Mm.
just lapse into yeah, go back to the home screen and then you're like, oh, there's
Yeah.
Instagram, and your hand
Yeah.
just sort of does it and you're like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's called popcorn brain, isn't it? The technical
is it?
term.
That
Where
doesn't surprise me.
you do something, you do something once on your phone, you go, "Oh no, I don't need to look at that." And then without thinking, you're doing it again just to check if there's
Yeah,
another
yeah.
notification or just to check if something else is there, because we've just been programmed to
But
check it for this gratification.
do you think this always on flexible working setup that we've built for ourselves is an enabler of that, is a feeder of that? Because obviously, not that long ago, scary to say, at a past agency, we weren't even allowed to take the hunky, massive laptops home. Like they
Yeah,
had to
yeah,
stay there. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? So like
yeah.
we couldn't. We took, I think they gave me a BlackBerry once and I never used it. Um, so do you think it's an enabler of that? Yes, we might be suddenly going onto another app that's not work, but it feels like the environment has set us up for that.
This is the catch-22, isn't it? We all shifted to this flexible working through COVID 5 years ago. 5 years on, we're still doing it because it works. And if you think back, not even just to how we worked pre-COVID and what we were allowed to do and what we weren't allowed to do, and flexible working was not was a privilege rather than a
Yeah,
necessity, right? And if you go back even further, like for our parents' generation, like it was not a thing. There was no flexibility. There was no, but there was not as much need for it. Generationally, something had to change. My parents are still working full time. All
mm,
of my kids' grandparents are still working full time. There's not the same kind of village that potentially our parents had, where I remember school runs, mornings, afternoons. My grandparents were the ones that were taking me to school a lot of the time. So the flexible working has had to come in through necessity so that we can manage childcare and a career.
I mean, like you could go into this massive kind of macro deep dive into like, how we need, two incomes per household, like to
Yeah,
survive
yeah,
on one is just impossible, that kind of
yeah,
thing as well. I actually sit in a unique position in terms of I moved back to New Zealand from London with Branch Road and basically worked from home, remote working, all that kind of stuff, like a couple of years before COVID.
yeah,
So I was sort of used to, and this was without kids, obviously, but I had a dog,
yeah.
so
Same, same.
I was, yeah, yeah, I was sort of used to the setup, the slightly odd hours, the working in a solo, lonely void by
Yeah,
yourself
yeah,
every day kind of thing.
yeah,
And then so when it all happened after COVID or during COVID or whatever, like, and people were talking, I was like, yeah, like it's kind of the norm for me.
mm,
Um, but yeah, put kind of like kids and parenting in the situation, and it just turns into a whole new beast on its own. So like
mm,
when people talk about remote working or working from home or whatever, unless you've got kids, that's a totally different conversation. Your kid only needs to be sick or be having a really bad day, or your baby's
mm-hmm.
only napped for 20 freaking
Minutes.
minutes, and suddenly you haven't slept all night, and you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, and then you have to sit down and you're like, hi everybody, yeah,
Yeah.
nice to see you, and just like, blah,
Yeah.
and it's just, and then you get off the call and you're just like, wow, or
Yeah.
and then you actually get into the work you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a different beast altogether.
Yeah. I did want to ask you one thing because I think it'd be quite humorous. We've all
Mm.
had them. Chaotic work from home moments with your kids. Have you had any? Have you had any good ones for a giggle?
There was this one time where uh, Livy was homesick. I was on a call,
Hmm.
and Juliet needed feeding. So I was obviously off camera,
Yeah.
breastfeeding Juliet whilst holding Livy's hair back as she's vomited in the toilet.
Oh
And
my
I'm like,
goodness.
yeah, we'll get that scope of work over to you tomorrow. We'll just need to iron out the details on DCs or something like that. Blah. This one's here. I'm just
Mute,
like,
quick
Jesus
mute
Christ.
button, quick mute. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
literally.
Yeah.
Mine was actually quite recently. This is the best one I can think of recently, but because there have been not just been one, there has been many. I had a one-to-one with Carmel the other week, and I had a settling, like a reception afternoon with Evie. Like she'd gone into the school, come home. Like so, she was home, and she's not normally home. Malia was home early as well because of it. So I was like, I'll just fill my day with internal calls. I can do my one-to-ones. It's fine if I have to
Yeah.
drop off. It's not a problem. So I done one meeting. That was all good. Jumped onto this call with Carmel, and the girls are setting up a shop in the background because they're just
Cute.
gathering everything, putting on tables and creating a little till and all of this stuff. But they both want the table. They both want the table in a
Oh, here we
particular
go.
place.
Royal
So
Rumble.
literally in the corner of my eye, I can hear them. They're raising their voices a little bit, going, "No, I'm going to have it here. I'm going to have it there." And at the corner of my eye, suddenly the table is in the air, and both of them have hold of this table, and I'm like, "Carmel, I'm just going to mute for a second. Turn around, deal with that because it's full like wrestling, like someone's going to throw a table in a minute.
Oh
Put
my
that down,
God.
sort that out, come back to call." Right, where were we? I'm like, what? What
So
have I
good.
just sorted out in the background?
Oh, that's so good. I think as well, like for me, is when I've forgotten about a call
Yeah,
and like I'm out, I don't know, on a kindy pickup or something like that, and then it's like, 5 minutes until 50, you get the 15-minute reminder,
yeah,
and you're like,
yeah.
shit, right, we go to the park, get on the swings, strap them in. You got to be there for about
Yeah.
25 minutes. Headphones in.
Make sure they got a sun hat.
Yeah, yeah. Oh
Oh,
God,
it's all
but
fun
yeah,
and games. It's all fun and games. It's what keeps things interesting, isn't it?
definitely. I wouldn't have it
Yeah,
any other way. And like I
yeah.
said, we're very lucky to be able to have the best of both worlds, I'd say,
Yeah.
Rebecca.
I think we do. I think we do.
I guess that's a good segue into like the other topic we wanted to talk about a little bit around kids and tech.
Over the last year, I rarely post pictures of my children on social media because of things like AI.
There's like more control in the parents' hands to be like, okay, you can only have this much time watching kids' YouTube or Netflix. Liv gets a bit older and she goes to her friend's house who has no boundaries.
Give a child a smartphone in that time where their brain is developing. You're essentially going to wire it for addiction, wire it for short-term gratification and anxiety, probably.
For my parents, Sunday morning cartoons on public TV, like I've looked back on it and there is just some horrifically, sexual innuendo and all this kind of stuff.
I think that's
And like they didn't even know.
the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.